I'm Brandon Brown. I've been doing taxidermy since 2007, and I'm making this video to talk about CWD and caping your deer. I'm not familiar with the other states, but I do know a lot of states are definitely on board with not bringing your deer back into their state or North Carolina without it being completely caped out. So with that, I want to start with the misconception of being caped. A lot of people use the term as caped as skint down to the head with the head still intact, ready for a mount. A taxidermist uses the term caped as the skin being completely down and off the face, skull removed. Okay, so in North Carolina, we can no longer receive legally any deer out of state with the exception of South Carolina. If you're hunting South Carolina, I recommend you go and read the regulations in the North Carolina regulations book on that. That is the only state that you can currently bring a deer head in out of. So for the avid hunters that are hunting out of state, wherever it may be, it's going to be a good idea for you to learn how to cape out a deer. There is definitely some pros to that. It makes it very easy to transport. You have the cape out, it's usually fits, sometimes it'll fit in a very small bag. It takes up a lot less space, so if you have a big deer with a big rack, you don't have to worry about it not fitting in the cooler. So I will be working on some videos on caping. I'm going to talk about some different cuts. The most common cut you'll hear for caping out a deer is the Y cut. I use it. There's others. I'm currently using what's called a T cut, and I think it's a little bit easier to do. I think it would be a little bit easier to do for a hunter that's not caped many deer. If you kill a deer, the first thing you need to do when you're caping it is to skin it out all the way to the head. Don't cut it off mid-neck or 6-8 inches of neck. Cut that neck completely out. It's going to make the job much faster in the long run as far as caping the skull out. It's not as hard as people think it is. So my advice is, if you've never caped one out, then prepare yourself with an hour of time to do it. That should be an ample amount of time. You know, do it on your tailgate. Do it in daylight, in good lighting if you can. I also have some kits made up with scaffold blades, a tape measure, a screwdriver. I've got like $12 in them. If anybody's interested in getting one to have with them for caping a deer, you can just let me know. I'm going to do a video demonstrating the T cut and the Y cut. The process is the same, it's just a different incision. You can do whichever one you prefer. Like I said, I'm going to recommend the T cut over the Y cut. The Y cut is the most common. It's probably what you're going to hear, what you're going to see if you're searching YouTube or anything like that for other videos. We'll talk about measurements. There is measurements that we need on deer. There's measurements that I take on deer that I prefer, but if you cannot take measurements, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I can measure the skin just as well as I can measure that deer head. You know, if you're going to use a knife, make sure it's a good sharp knife. The most important thing is, you know, when you make your incision, try to make clean cuts. Don't want jagged or chopped up cuts or anything like that. That's pretty much the most important thing. But stay tuned. I will have these videos posted of the T cut and the Y cut, and I'll go over measurements and some other things too, so anybody can have these videos to look back on or use while you're in the field. And if anybody wants to share these for their taxidermy business or whatever it may be, feel free. You're welcome to do that, and I appreciate it.